So I saw this in the news and I thought it was worth talking about. So this is the Project 2025, Project 2025. So it's about calls to ban trans extremists as terrorists. Okay, so again, they want to class trans extremists as a terrorist. So what does this mean then? So the Heritage Foundation, the architects of Project 2025, and its spin-off group, the Oversight Project, they're petitioning the FBI to label trans ideology inspiration violence extremists, TIVE, as a domestic terrorist threat. Okay, so that's what they want to do. What was the event? The trigger event? Well, they cite the recent killing of Charlie Kirk as supposed evidence, despite there being no proof that the shooter was connected to trans people or activism. Yeah, this is the thing. There has been no proof that anything to do with trans people. The only thing that they can find is that he was dating. Apparently, he was dating a trans person, but they look for a scapegoat, and they're looking anyway. They wanted a trans person for Charlie Kirk's killing. They wanted to blame it on trans people, and it looks like they're still trying to do that, even though there's no evidence that trans people or any trans person was involved in Charlie Kirk's murder. So what's happening? The claims, the Heritage group, they allege that horrific acts of political violence have been carried out in the name of trans rights, but offer no credible evidence. Yeah, they don't have any evidence. So let's see. Most extreme murders in the US are committed by right-wing or white supremacists. Of 3,708 mass shootings since 2015, wow, that's a lot. Just 16 involved trans people. Just 16 out of 3,708. Can you imagine? Data shows Christians are not the main target. Okay. Other rhetoric, the push follows extreme comments by Texas Republican Ronnie Jackson, who said trans people should be put in mad homes, basically in mental homes, and taken off the streets. Okay, so that's what he thinks. He thinks we've got a mental illness, basically. Why does this matter? Well, criminalization of identity. Trying to brand trans ideology as terrorism moves the debate from bathrooms and schools into realms of national security. It's a weaponization of fear. So it makes like trans existing as trans, it puts us as if we're violent extremists. So it makes trans people look violent extremists, and it's a deliberate strategy to justify surveillance, police powers, and social exclusion. So it's pretty scary what it could end up doing. So what about the data? It ignores actual threats. The vast majority of extreme violence comes from the far right, and instead scapegoats a vulnerable minority, which are the trans people. Political projects. So the Project 2025 is already positioned as the playbook for future Republican White House. This shows how far they may be willing to go. So we're seeing the same thing in America as we're seeing in England. That we're saying the same, or Britain, the same kind of talking points. They want to push trans people out of public life and even make us look like criminals. So labeling minorities as terrorists is a classic move in authoritarian, okay, like places like Russia, okay, and LGBTQ plus propaganda. Hungary with gender, Hungary. In Hungary, it's like gender ideology. In Russia, it's LGBT plus propaganda. So what they're trying to do is, under in America and in the UK with reform, what they're trying to do is they're making it out like we're criminals, we're the bad people, and that way they can justify surveillance on us, trying to push us out of everyday life. We basically make us like we're a bad thing, so we don't want that in everyday life. So what's the danger? If the US adopts such a framing, it could legitimize similar crackdowns worldwide. Other governments could copy the trans-terror logic to silence activists. So this is why it's so important. The European Court of Human Rights has consistently ruled that LGBT rights are part of a core human freedom. Many countries, example Canada, Argentina, Malta, are moving in the opposite direction, recognizing trans rights in law and healthcare. So this highlights the growing gulf. Whilst much of the world expands protections, US policy shifts under Project 2025 could normalize these procedures. So it could end up being, like I said to you before, I mean, like we said with reform, it's coming if they get passed. But let's be honest here, I mean, it does look a little bit like stupid, because obviously blaming Charlie Kirk's death and saying we now need to, class trans people as terrorists, I think most people are not going to buy that. I would hope they wouldn't buy that, because it's obviously not true. Let me see what it says. I know somebody said something. But I wanted to share this with you because these stories I thought, and these are all in the last 24 hours. I got all these stories from the news cycle in the last 24 hours. So I wanted to share them with you. I know they're not the nicest things, but they do alert to what's really going on. How about the death of Charlie Kirk being evidence of the need to tighten gun regulation? Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking, but that's not something they will speak about. They won't talk about that. Nobody, have you noticed? Nobody's talked about that. Nobody's talked about that. It's been ignored. Nobody's talked about that. So it looks like they're not going to do anything about gun or anything like that. It looks like they're just going to leave it as it is, and I don't think there's going to be any change at all. So yeah, so it looks like look. I mean, it is. I still think there's. Look, we're still fighting against it. We're still doing what we can. So I wouldn't say it's all doom and gloom, but I do admit that it's also not the best thing to hear in the news, and we have to keep our eyes open for this, because parties like Reform do want to mimic what's happening in America, and what's happening in America. These things. Do I believe they're going to try and do this? Yeah, I do, but I don't know how normal citizens are going to take to this. There is a lot of people that have already believe in what they've been told by their governments. I just hope that they can realize that this isn't reality.